looks like we are going to make the political revolution. Our ideas and our progressive vision, we are the future of this country.
By the way, we just need Larry David and Alec Baldwin here, and then basically we can have an entertaining solution to this whole thing. All right, Bernie Sanders, of course, continuing to preach his progressive gospel here. Now, the left wing of the party, they're led by Sanders, as you know, also Massachusetts Senator Liz Warren, a favorite of the crowd. But that's at odds with the moderate wing that is trying to win swing districts up for grabs in next November's election. Take a district in our neck of the woods, actually down in Georgia, and then we'll get closer to home. Jon Ossoff in Georgia, he could very well become one of the new faces of the Democratic Party, literally and figuratively. He's a moderate Democrat trying to win a conservative House seat in Georgia. Now, the special election is next week, and as of now, polling has him up 7 points. He's also bucking the left. He is against single-payer health care and opposed to raising taxes on the wealthy. Now, contrast that with a district in our region, Zephyr Teachout. She lost to Republican John Faso in New York's 19th district. Now, she leans more towards Sanders' point of view, so now party elders, they're wondering whether a more moderate candidate should be put up against Faso, who's considered very vulnerable, next November. Where does the party go? Is it a district-by-district decision, Jeannie, or as messaging as a party, do you really want, hundreds of folks in the House and, and 50 folks here, hopefully for Democrats' perspective, in the Senate, all with their own platforms and everything else? Because, depending if you're New York or Southern New York versus in San Francisco versus now in the 19th district or in Georgia, you might as well be in two different parties.
Yeah, I am of the opinion that it has to play to the locality that you're in. What's going to play for Ossoff in Georgia is not going to play up in New York, depending on what district you're in. Actually, it may in some upper state districts, but not in. So, I think it does depend, and I think this is where parties make a mistake. So much of politics is, to Anil's point, local, and so that has to be the number one perspective. But not to be wishy-washy, but the party also has to take a stand at the national level and say, this is where we stand. We are open to differences by district and locality, but this is where the energy of the party is overall, and we are going to be open enough to support popular candidates in their districts, but they can't be so just absent of any message, which is what the Democrats have had a problem with. So I think it has to be actually a good combination of both.
I think Democrats make a mistake because they said, oh, well, you know what? They really hated Hillary. Look at Sanders' all debate. There were a lot of folks who, when Sanders called himself a socialist, said, not in a million years would I vote for that guy, and they voted for Hillary. So this idea that somehow the primary was stolen from him and that wing of the party and everything else, I think is really convenient recollections of history. I don't know. Historically, you run to the middle on these things, and it tends to do you better. I just don't know that the left wing of the party is going to go along to get along this time. They were livid that they really, bit their tongue for Hillary, and what did it get them?
But the left wing of the party can't get elected in national elections.
You're right.
If you go forward with a Bernie Sanders or, God forbid, an Elizabeth Warren, it's a wrap. It's over. If you're a Republican, you would love to see Elizabeth Warren you would just Michael Dukakis her all over again, and just a liberal. None of this stuff is going to fly in Washington. I'm writing the commercial. She's Dukakis,
Bostonite,
out of touch. It's not going to happen. So you need someone like Obama. The professor is right. All politics are local, but you need someone that's more personality driven. And Obama, a Bill Clinton, that can play to the left, that can nibble with the left, but can also go mainstream to connect with the majority of voters.
This sounds like the same conversation we were having about 2.5 years ago when we were trying to figure out, and by the way, somebody at this table kept reminding that Bernie Sanders was going to be a formidable force in the Democratic presidential race.
Somebody at this table also said he had no chance at all.
Right, and I agreed with you with that because he would be rejected as being a socialist by too many voters, and whoever the Republican nominee was going to win, I think, by an even larger margin than he defeated Hillary Clinton. This has to be both a combination of regional and personality driven. Look, we just had a recent example of that. In the New Jersey gubernatorial race, one of the candidates on the Democratic side was an early endorser of Bernie Sanders. And though he did not endorse him directly, there was an informal endorsement of this candidate by Bernie Sanders in the gubernatorial race. Anybody know who it was? Because he's not the nominee for governor of New Jersey on the Democratic Party. It was John Wisniewski.
Yep.
So, you know,
That's exactly what I mean about personality. I could have told you on day one. He had no chance.
So there are a lot of factors that determine this, and there should not be one overarching, policy window for every Democrat who's running. The party hasn't figured this all out. Voters haven't figured this all out. It'll depend on the individual candidates and what they run on, and you don't need an answer to this question until it's time to pick a nominee for president.
Except, what do we see for the Republicans not too many years ago? We saw the birth of the Tea Party, and you saw pledges and purity things, challenges in primaries if Republicans weren't going to basically try and throttle the government here. I haven't seen that yet for Democrats, but I'm not so sure, even though it sounds like a simple question, do you want to win or do you want to make a point, that there's not a whole bunch of folks who want to make a point, I'm not sure. I think Democrats are underestimating how much of an internal problem they're going to have when moderates want to run. Are they going to challenge, for example, the equivalents of the, mansions in West Virginia's and the rest? Democrats who are in those purple states that have to do whatever they got to do to get elected. Do they let them get away with that anymore? I don't know the answer to the question.
Yeah, and then we'd be looking at what? The Democratic Party of the late 1970s, early 1980s, when the far left of the party couldn't get out of its own way to win, and we had to wait for Bill Clinton to come in and to say, we are going to make this a party that's going to win versus a party that's going to be right. That's always the struggle. And to your point, we've seen the Democratic Party leadership, Perez and others on the trail since they got elected, talking about these things and being booed off the stage because they aren't far left enough. So that's a real danger for the party. What I think is that the party has to be very careful not to go with somebody, and I like our governor, Andrew Cuomo, but he's going to be hit on not being authentic. To Dominic and Andrew's point about personality, if you're going to run in the middle, you've got to be authentic, and you've got to play to the left and the middle in an authentic way.
The only thing here someone else could have going for him is they'd be running against Trump. And in that particular case, competency may win out. But we have a long way till then. All right, coming up next, really interesting issue because I know everybody was shocked by what the president had to do when he pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accords. Well, science had no place at that table for that debate. So there's a question, and a lot of politicians are asking it. We're going to sit down with both a scientist and a former congressman who's going to say the cuts that this president are proposing would set us back unbelievably in the world of science.